morning. Welcome to the Marion City Council work session. Once we have a quorum here, we'll also have a special call meeting to take care of one issue. Before we get started, would you mind, since you were tardy, could you open us in prayer? Made that door squeak again after I just said squeaky door.
Thank
you.
Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for all the blessings that you bestowed upon us, Lord. And we know that you're the creator of the universe and you know all. So we should always look to you for answers as to how we live our lives and decisions that we make. We pray for this city. We pray for this country. We pray for this state. We pray that everything that's done today will be decent and in order. These are our blessings we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. George Irby. I always enjoy his prayers. They're like little mini sermons. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about on the agenda today for the work session is the MCWI grant. Zach, I think that's you.
Morning, Mayor and Council. So during Horn's review of the MCWI grant reimbursement for the 2nd Street box culvert replacement project, they noticed that we did not place the advertisement for bids on MTAP's website. That is a requirement that we were not aware of in May of 2022 when we put that out for bid. So it was not on the website. Because of that, it is not eligible for reimbursement under the MCWI grant. It's my understanding that Gary Reichert, he's an attorney for Butler Snow that's representing DEQ, and Kyle Skeen with Horn are both on Zoom if y'all have any specific questions. But it's my understanding that DEQ plans to ask legislature to remove that requirement from the MCWI grant process because it's from the act, because it's a kind of a widespread problem across the state. So Horn and I and Jamie all had several discussions, and half of the box culvert, which was $40,250, is eligible for reimbursement. So the city would get a check for $20,125, but construction of the project is not eligible. Now the good news is, since all the projects across the state were funded, the city's not losing the money. They can, if you choose to do so, you can allocate that towards another project, or the city could choose to wait and see what legislature does if they remove the MTAP requirement. So. And
you do understand this is part of the ARPA money that we had earmarked for that, which is the match.
So is your understanding if they go back and remove, then all of a sudden we can't get reimbursed?
That's my understanding. Gary, can you answer that question?
Yeah, good morning, members of the council. My name is Gary Reichert. I'm with Butler Snow, and I'm one of the attorneys that's assisting in DEQ and
my question was, if they go back and remove that particular wording, could we then be reimbursed for previous work done?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You should be able to. That there's it appears to us that most of the federal procurement requirements were met, and the big thing with federal procurement, as you probably well know, is competitive bidding. That's if you don't have that, then there's a real danger of clawback. And the other one is the solicitation of minority and women businesses. And my understanding is Bill Schaefer did do solicitation of that, and while it is not in full compliance with the federal procurement requirements, we think that it is adequate and MDEQ would agree to reimburse that. Now, let me tell you this, that MDEQ is not the final decision maker on any of these issues. That's the U.S. Treasury. So even if MDEQ said, hey, we think you're good to go, we're going to reimburse you, because we think it's good enough, Treasury could decide, no, it's not, and call back the money. So while we think that MDEQ would be comfortable with issuing the reimbursement, you just need to know that there's some risk, even if the legislature does remove the MTAP requirement in the next session.
But Gary, wouldn't you say that we need to talk to our local legislators and encourage them to support this?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, this particular requirement, and Zach and I talked about it, it's been in the law since 1991. They changed it from the previous, it used to be called the Mississippi Procurement Center, and they changed it to the Mississippi Procurement technical assistance program in 2007. But when it really got confusing was 2009, and they added some reference to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And that, I can see how that could have confused folks when that was put in there. But, you know, it's a state law requirement, and unfortunately, the way that the enabling legislation is, obviously, that MDEQ has for this program, you know, we have to follow all state laws. And so, if there's a law that's not followed, you know, then we can't reimburse. Even if we think, hey, this may be overkill, it's not practically, it may not have been needed because of the minority women on business solicitation that Bill Schaefer had already done. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, MDEQ is left with following the laws. We don't make the laws.
Okay, now Zach, tell us again exactly what the costs were and what we're looking at.
The cost for construction was $368,000, and the cost for the box culvert was $40,250. The total matching grant amount was $212,290.
And how much, so right now, we're just getting the 40,000 match.
20.
You're getting half of the $40,250 match. That's correct. So the city should receive a check for $20,125.
And if we get this reversed, what would it be?
It would be the full amount, $212,290. Or if it's not, like I said, the city can reallocate the money to another eligible project.
Now, didn't we declare this an emergency too? Does that not factor in?
We never did declare it as an emergency because of the fact that it was gonna take a long time to get the box culvert in. We went ahead and advertised.
Yeah, since there was an 8-week lead time on the box culvert, the city chose to go ahead and do a competitive solicitation for bids.
Yeah. It was an emergency because it could have affected our water.
That's correct.
You could have cut it off to the whole city. We haven't got this correct. Okay.
It's one of those cases where if we had just declared it an emergency and gone ahead without putting it out for bid, we'd be getting reimbursed. Now we put it out for bid, but we didn't fully comply with that MP tap, which was virtually unknown, and as a consequence of our bidding it out, and we don't get reimbursed where we would have if we spent it as an emergency.
Well, we're gonna work hard to try to get it back because we need it. All right. Anything else, Zach?
That's all I've got, unless y'all have any more questions.
Any more questions, council? Thank you, Zach.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Okay, oh, we need to do, I'm sorry. All right, where am I going to now?
You're going to Main Street.
Okay, Main Street. We're gonna, go to the Main Street Capital Improvement Grant. I think, we got Kevin.
Yes, sir.
The
All right,
reason we're skipping the garbage rate is because we gotta have a quorum to vote on that, in case you're watching and wondering. If you hear me, council, come on in, we need to vote.
50 words, 1,000 words, I always say, all right?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna ask you to grab it. We'll do that. So, Mayor and Council, if y'all aren't aware, I'm actually, for years now, have acted as the mayor's appointment on the the Columbus Main Street Board. And as y'all know, money is falling out of every corner of government right now. And now it's obviously trickling all the way down to nonprofits. And so Columbus Main Street has the opportunity at 2 different grants that they have never actually gone after before, one of which has never been available to them. Another one actually just tied in conversation. So in sitting on that board, the first, I'll stop, the very first page you see here to kind of also give you an update of why we're here. And I said capital improvements. I've highlighted here, Main Street first off received ARPA funds. As we know, nobody's had ARPA funds in the past, to the tune of about $100,000. They're doing 3 things with that money. First off, if you'll flip on the back side of that front page, you'll see some of the improvements that Penny Bowen and her team put together for Leadership Plaza. That's been put out for bid. It's been awarded to the lowest contractor. Flip back to the first page, you'll see that's almost a $54,000 renovation to Leadership Plaza. That's a city-owned asset that Main Street's taken on completely. At one time, as a board, we thought we were gonna have to come to the city for help, and luckily the bids came in good, so we don't have to do that. Ribbon cutting's coming soon. When is that? The date been set,
You came before?
or the groundbreaking for the Leadership Plaza?
September 19th.
September 19th. So with that said, that's where some of the money was spent. The next piece is a new murals going on the back of the old Parker building. And then also, the board decided to spend $9,000 for marketing purposes. So $100,000 that we had in capital, keeping in mind, Columbus Main Street Board's budget, annual budget and revenue is $150,000. So we're a very small machine, if you will, to try to do projects. Well, flip to the next page, and what you'll see, and when I say the next page, this front is a summary of kind of the grant opportunities that are out there. And so the first is Mississippi Main Street. This past legislative session, Delbert Hoseman and the legislature ended up passing through a new fund that will is for revitalizing downtown Main Street. It's going to run through the Mississippi Main Street Association. The governor's already signed it into law, but they didn't fund anything. They just set up the fund for it last year. Basically, they said, bring us your projects this next year, and through this next legislative session, they will see what they will fund. Right now, intent is they're hoping to get $10 million a year that Mississippi Main Street would facilitate to trickle back down into our local communities. That's the whole point of it. With the maximum ask on this grant being $500,000, $500,000. It's an 80-20 grant, and it can be used for just about anything in your downtown Main Street corridor. So obviously, Columbus Main Street as a board, we're sitting around talking about what are we going to do with $500,000, and obviously where do we come up with a match on that. So with that, we came up with two projects, and that's what I was going to use the remaining pages for. It's kind of in pictures, talk through what that was. The first one is downtown wayfinding. If y'all remember in 2010, this black page is a screenshot from Mississippi Main Street's presentation. They came in and afforded a charrette for the city of Columbus, one of which helped locate the soccer complex, or at least they were the third-party non-factor, if you will, to weigh in on where that should be located. But this page here shows some other recommendations they made. Some of the things that we have done is your gateway and corridors. As y'all know, some of the plantings that were done in our downtown medians, in our Main Street and Highway 45 areas, all those planters came out of that recommendation. The city welcome signs that you come in and say Columbus and have the flagpoles behind it, that came out of that charrette. Well, one of the things you'll see right in the middle here is wayfinding. This was done in 2010, so here we are 13 years later. We really haven't done wayfinding for downtown. And so as you can see at the bottom, there's Mississippi Main Street's logo on that. So this is just a general reminder to them that this is something they told us we needed to do 13 years ago, and we would see that using their money now to move that forward would be helpful. Some of the pages you see behind that are some of the examples that came out of that charrette. So you see some signage that would be just, again, examples for downtown that would help show wayfinding. The next page behind that, you'll see some signage for the Riverwalk, of which we have done some of that in the rocks that you see out there. And then you also see the next page, that charrette looked at part of the whole city. So this one says East Columbus. Obviously, for the purposes of this grant, it'd have to be focused on downtown, but putting up banners to help people who aren't in town or from here know kind of where they are in the city. And we already have banners downtown, but this would help do more wayfinding as well. So that's the first piece of it. And in doing a wayfinding study, you normally go through and obviously look at all the different pieces, the signs on the ground, banners on the poles, see what makes sense, what do you want to accentuate and bring out. You get public feedback, you have stakeholder meetings. Obviously, you have to design that, put it out for bid, and then the installation. All that included, we thought a good budget for that is $250,000. So what you'll see on the page here is the total project at $250,000, whereas we're asking the state through Mississippi Main Street to pay for $200,000 with a local match of $50,000. So that's the first project. The second one the board talked about, again, with a maximum ask of $500,000, we still had $300,000 left to spend. One of the things in downtown that's come about, if y'all recall, in 2017 through 2019, MDOT studied the Main Street corridor due to safety issues, pedestrian crossing issues, downtown parking, people speeding through downtown, backing out of parking spaces where you can't see, and people getting rear-ended, especially here at the post office.
People driving into buildings.
This is true too. So with that said, the study came out with two alternates. We had a stakeholder group that consisted of local merchants downtown, the garden clubs, and DOT people, city officials, obviously aldermen or councilmen for that ward, or those wards. And so with that, the option that was selected is what helped create the roundabout at Harvey's. That was where most of the accidents were happening in that safety study, and MDOT helped fund that 80-20 through a TAP grant. Well, TAP has come back around again, and so going back to Columbus Main Street, the state funding, and by the way, TAP money is federal, and so coupling the state's money with the federal money, all of a sudden, the local match becomes much less to get a much bigger project. Of that study, one of the things the council voted on to do at that time was to improve the intersection of Main and Fifth. And so one of the things you'll see in this packet is what was produced from that study. I didn't edit it, I just put it in here as a reminder. That's this page here. What you'll see there are, there's 3 intersections total on that page. The 2 that fit within this grant funding and also the scope of what Main Street can swing at right now would be Main and Fifth, and then Fifth and Second Avenue at the Trotter and the courthouse and Zachary's, improving that intersection from an ADA perspective. So it would do a lot of different things at both intersections. The previous council actually approved to apply for TAP funds for the Fifth and Main project, and because it's on MDOT right away, they came back and said, if you don't mind, we would like to do the project down at Second Street and Main, and so that's what happened at that time. It is there right away. So, so with that, and flipping back to the overall, well, while I'm there, the 2 intersections I'm talking about, the very last page is our engineering breakdown of the materials and unit prices that we would see necessary to do that project. It's about a $1.1 million project, all costs included. The good news.
On those 2 intersections, I would say they're very dangerous.
Correct.
Right now in the way that they are, because the one by the courthouse in Zachary's is just a cluster. I mean, people have been hit there. I mean, the signs don't change. You don't know when you're supposed to walk and when you can't. Over here, you try to walk out when it's time for you to walk, and people turning will run you over if you're not looking at them doing this.
Well, the complaint we get, there's not enough time to cross.
There's not enough time either. So those are 2 major issues, and I'm surprised somebody hasn't been seriously hurt at one of these places by now.
One of the big takeaways at these intersection improvements that you'll see is right now when you're crossing the street, you're starting at the front of a parked car. So not only can you not see who's coming in the through lane, you're having to go the entire length of a parked car before you're truly crossing the street at that point. So when I say the word bump out, what I'm talking about is moving where that pedestrian is starting to move and cross the street to the back side of the car. So now the curb will be at the bumper of the car. So 1, you can see who's coming before you step out. 2, it moves you closer, that much closer, about 14 feet to the other side of the road. And if you do the same thing on the opposite side, you've all of a sudden reduced 28 feet of where the pedestrian has to cross. But the other thing that we're doing with this on Main Street and Fifth is that when you're headed out of town, when you're headed westbound, keep in mind there's only 1 lane going out of town. We no longer need 5 lanes in downtown. That was all pre-bypass. Now that we have the bypass, the traffic study showed that MDOT did that we only needed 3 lanes in downtown, the center lane and the 1 lane coming in, 1 lane going out. And so we would eliminate, right now there's a right hand turn lane that turns northbound onto Fifth. We would eliminate that right-hand turn lane and make that parking. So now parking along this block would extend from City Hall all the way down in front of the Rosenswag. Then that through lane that heads out of town, the northernmost through lane would now become that right-hand turn lane. So you still have a dedicated right-hand turn, but you've now repurposed it. Well, what you do is on the opposite side of the street, you'll pull that bump out, not only to the back of the car, you'll pull it all the way across that opposite lane. So now you can no longer go through there. It forces you to go right. The other thing that does is if you're on Main Street between 4th and 5th and you're trying to back out, it now gives you an entire 12-foot lane to back out into, so increasing the safety for backing out as well. So you saw several things in doing that. Pedestrian safety, obviously the parking safety is going to slow traffic down as you move curbs in. And then, of course, the final lane will stay the through lane that goes out of town. And as y'all know, once you get past 4th and you're on your way to 3rd, it forces you to get in that left-hand lane as you're heading out of town. So that'll reallocate that on the front end and help traffic getting out of town as well. So that's what the project would do. Now, having said that, I flip back to the financial page. What does this mean financially? I broke the 2 intersections down in cost. You're looking at about a $750,000 project to do the Main and Fifth project. You're looking at about a $400,000 to do the Fifth and Second Avenue project. And so with that, we would still propose that the state, using the Mississippi Main Street funding, that they would allocate almost about $180,000 toward this project. Therefore, we would have to match, it's another $45,000, and then we would ask for $900,000 from the state. And so we think that the combination of it being downtown on a DOT right-of-way as part of a DOT study, that MDOT would probably look upon this project as pretty favorable for the grant. And so with that, we would have a $380,000 ask of the state through Main Street. Their maximum is $500,000, so we felt like coming in well below that $500,000 would be good for a first time swing at it. And then MDOT at $900,000 is not too high of an ask at all. And then so finally, the matching funds locally would be $95,000 for both projects, both intersections and the wayfinding. That's a little under 7% of the overall cost would come locally. So why am I here today? Two reasons. One, as a board member, to say and ask for permission to do these projects because they're on city right away as well. And they would be something that would have to run through because these funds are only available to Columbus Main Street. They would have to run through Columbus Main Street as an organization. And then finally, and the second part is there any chance the city would want to match? I go back to the Columbus Main Street Board, their entire budget's $150,000. So coming up with $95,000 is a far stretch. Now, having said that, y'all are the first entity we've come to. And the CBB is somebody we would like to talk to. We think wayfinding coming into downtown and for tourists to come in, visitors to come in and know where they're going, that's something they'd be interested in. They're in their budget season like most others are, and we've been told that they would entertain this. But obviously, y'all are the first step. If we can't get the funding for this, then we're kind of
What
dead
about
in
the
water.
county? Were you gonna?
We're gonna approach the county as well, so.
I think this all sounds good, but I think that we need to see if we can get some, council, would y'all agree that we'd see who else could potentially help fund it?
So
I
all
don't
the,
think we're in the position to do a whole 95,000.
And this money could be taken out of the paving use.
correct, both of these projects qualify through paving, so you could use your internet sales tax. Y'all get, I think, close to $2 million a year
So
for
it could,
that.
it could come out of our budgeting for the,
Correct. Now, so the only other kickers I'll mention is the grant deadline for the Mississippi Main Street is September 6th. And then for the MDOT TAP funding, that's end of October, plenty of time for that. So, so really the push is part of the Main Street application, we have to show that the matching funds are secured. And so if there were the city said, hey, we can fund the 95, but please find some other partners, great. The other thing has to happen is both the legislature next year has to fund the Mississippi Main Street and MDOT has to fund, obviously, the TAP. So there's a lot of ifs. And I feel like that it will be it will be in y'all's next, not this current budget year, your next budget year before you would ever have to realize these matching funds anyhow. So you're a good ways out, but this is
maybe we'd have to vote again once. it
the
was
funds
approved.
come in to accept,
Yeah.
that's right. So it's a good ways out, but right now the problem as a board was we don't have $95,000 to put toward these opportunities.
And when did you have to have back to them?
September 6th,
Which is the day after our council meeting.
Correct.
So we could vote on this Tuesday.
correct.
Okay.
For which street? Fifth? It's around 400,000. That's the total, yes, sir.
Kevin, in the meantime, I don't think the really bad intersection over here by the courthouse and Zachary's, I don't even think that thing is telling people when they can walk.
No, so Mayor, that's
Is there anything we can do before this with that?
Yes, that's the email thread we were on. I think, Jamie, you may have been on it as well. Columbus Light and Water is gonna need to shut that intersection down for 3 days.
Oh, that's right, yes.
And we've identified between now and the end of October, several days that the courthouse will not be in operation and there's nothing at the Trotter. They're gonna try to do it.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They're gonna try to do it between a Monday and a Thursday. They haven't come back to us yet and said what days they're gonna do that. We will
That's right.
definitely put that out in the public as soon as we know, but it'll be soon. That's gonna,
Next 3 days.
they're gonna, well, it's a spider web of things underground, so just boring outright. They were gonna probably
Yeah,
hit
it's
something.
not
They're gonna
easy.
open cut all 4 crossings to put in the new conduits and also install all the new ped heads. 3 days, as you know, is probably a conservative. They're making sure they have enough. We hope they finish faster, but because of the cost, Light and Water's doing it in-house. So it won't be a third party installing it. So they've asked to shut it down for 3 days.
You have 3 councilmen.
Yeah, thank you. It's,
Councilman Mickens, Councilman, well, I just said,
is it Beard, Jones?
yes, sir, Councilman Jones, Councilman Weaver.
Okay, good.
And I will place all this packed information in those boxes who aren't here as well, so.
Any questions, council? Can y'all hear us on the Zoom? Hello?
Looks like they're muted.
I can't unmute him there, there
Can you hear me? Okay, any questions for Kevin?
No, I actually just got on.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Jones. Okay, so we're gonna go back, okay, thank you.
y'all.
We'll go back up now to the resolution approving the garbage rate increase. Jeff, did you want to take that?
Sure. This is something that's a redundancy. Y'all already approved the rate increase in the August 15 meeting, but the statute says we have to advertise before the rate can go into effect, and it has to be published once a week for 3 consecutive weeks. We've now done that, so this is just the formality of passing the increase that you already approved now that it's been advertised as required by law.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This needs to be a voice vote, so if y'all can unmute, Ward 2.
Joe, you're on mute.
No,
Mr. Mickens? Voice vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Beard?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Chico?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. All right, now, we're back, we're on the medical insurance renewal. Ms. Pat, are you gonna take the lead on this one? She's so good, she always goes to the mic.
Good morning to everyone.
Good morning, Ms. Pat.
Tuesday, I distributed the renewal rates to renew medical insurance, dental insurance, city-paid life insurance, as well as all the voluntary ancillary products. And they are requesting no increase. There's a rate hold. The only increase that's being requested is our third-party reinsurance company who pays claims that exceed $50,000. I also distributed or sent a letter around last night, kind of breaking it down in layman's terms. And that the reinsurance company is requesting an increase, and if we choose to extend the cap from 50,000 to 70,000, the increase would reduce from 94,000 to 46. And we have reserved funds that we could take that 46,000 from. So we're just asking that you consider renewing our health insurance. We are pressed for time. We need to schedule employee meetings. We will have some open forum meetings, as well as employees will be able to go online and make changes to their insurance plan as well. We also would like to request the renewal of relationship with our insurance agents of record, and they're here, Cost Consulting Service and Mr. Russell Brown.
So we'll vote on this Tuesday, correct?
Well, we were hoping to vote today so
Oh,
we
okay.
can go ahead and work on putting the portal up for employees.
So is this two different motions that we need to make? One is the raising to 70
Is this
and
in,
going with that?
is this in our notice of special meeting?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct? We're gonna do that, and then also who our representatives are. That's two
It
separate
can be
motions.
one vote. In the past, you've always done just one vote.
They
But
left.
it's ever how you want to do it.
Did they leave or did they? Well, we'll have to do it Tuesday.
Okay.
So open enrollment is not until October, correct?
No, it goes into effect October.
Oh, well,
Right,
I
I
thought
need,
open enrollment was in October.
no, I need to go ahead and schedule meetings and give the employees the opportunity to make decisions about changes they want to make. And they have to send all of those changes to me by September 22nd to be effective October 1.
Is Tuesday too late for this to happen?
Well, will y'all be able to come?
I mean, could you go ahead and start letting them know what the information is even before we vote, just so they'll be prepared?
Send it out.
Okay. Yeah, to the employees?
I can.
Yeah, I know
There
they
is
did it
no
to us.
change.
Okay.
But we were just concerned about putting the portal up and making it live without the council approval.
Can we do that on a temporary, until we approve? I mean, they can't, I mean, nothing's gonna interchange until after they vote though, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's just giving them the information that they could potentially be working from.
Okay.
I would say do that. And can the insurance guys come Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are two items that I forgot to mention to Pat.
Mike,
Come on.
I got you before Joe did.
On the Blue Cross, Claims Administration renewal, at the very back of that, which I failed to notice, they're making language change on 2 items. One has to do with abortion. They're trying to change their language to match up with what the state of Mississippi has passed with regard to abortion. So their language would read that your health insurance policy would not cover abortion unless it meets state statutes, which is the rape, incest, or preservation of the life of the mother. So they just wanted to get their language in their policy to match up with what the state has. The other item was they are going on their fully insured plans, they're going to add a benefit for travel and lodging if a person needs an organ transplant. Historically, Blue Cross has never covered that, so they're going to add that. It would cover both the recipient and the donor, and then they've got a schedule of what they cover. You've got to travel a certain distance before it qualifies, and would pay for mileage and lodging and meal expenses under the health insurance plan. And so they're asking self-funded groups to add that as a standard benefit, so you'd have the choice of accepting or declining both of those. So I want to go ahead and mention those today while I'm here with you.
Well, now, what about we talked about the on-site clinic, health checks to try to get our numbers up. Is that included in all this?
And yes, and we finally got some numbers from Blue Cross. They didn't have specific cost when the gentleman was here from Blue Cross, and it's a $1,100 setup fee to set up that contract with the testing company, and then it would be $16.50 per blood test. And and from that test, they can tell you within 10 minutes what your cholesterol counts are and what your blood sugar count is. You may, perhaps talk with somebody local. You may want to get, local pricing as well. This is a vendor Blue Cross works with that comes in, does these healthy workplace assessments. So they're very organized, know how to do it, but, you may can find a rate.
So this needs to be in the vote on Tuesday about that too?
And I did send each council member that information as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not necessary to approve that immediately. That's something
That
we
can
can
be
have
brought in
more
anytime.
dialogue on, because
Okay.
you're gonna want some lead-up time to coordinate, if you do that, to how you're gonna bring employees in and get them to participate.
Yeah.
How do you incentivize them to participate? But, the true expectation of that is you've got a lot of employees who probably have high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and
They work
high
around here very
cholesterol
long, right,
counts.
Mr. Kenny?
And they don't know they have that. So, that's the goal, is trying to target that.
Right, Jim? Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right.
I was trying to bring some levity to it. I don't know that I did. but
Thank you,
Thank you.
council.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much, guys. All right, the next thing we've got on the agenda to discuss is our lobbying agreement renewal. We currently have been working under a contract with Worth Thomas and Associates. It is time for the council to reconsider whether we're going to continue that contract. Their contract, if we renew it, could go up some because it would add federal lobbying for us, which they have been doing some already. What I'm asking for the council to consider is to bring together a task force, maybe a couple of council members with me, and let's review this contract. The Columbus Redevelopment Authority has a lobbyist as well in Jackson, and are looking at hiring another one for federal. I have some concerns about us having too many lobbyists out there and not enough coordination. So what I would like to do is set up this task force, like I said, with me and a couple of council members, and sit down and review the successes and the failures of our ask, and then sit down with the Redevelopment Authority and have discussions with them about who their lobbyists are going to be and what they're doing. I just think it's important that we coordinate better than we have been. So that's my suggestion before we renew the contract with Worth and his group. They worked with us on the $3 million that we got in Washington they worked along with Wagner. Wagner wrote the documentation. They helped us push it through in Washington. They worked really hard in Jackson, got the money for the amphitheater over through the House, but it failed in the Senate. I guess we'll give the redevelopment authorities lobbyists credit for getting the $3 million for the redevelopment authority, but I will remind everybody that when we went to Jackson, the number one priority for the city was the amphitheater. And when it came back, it was not the amphitheater that got the funding. So I feel strongly that we need to have coordination on any other entity in the city that has a lobbyist. The city should be taking the lead on all lobbying efforts. We appreciate the efforts of the others, but I just think that it causes confusion between the lobbyists. When we were working for the 2% in Jackson, we had 3 lobbyists working on that. The Link had a lobbyist, we had a lobbyist, and so I guess those were the only 2 that were working on that. So I just feel like we need to do an assessment of where we are in lobbying. Some of our legislators have talked to us about their concerns about having lobbyists in Jackson and Washington. I just think we need to sit down, we need to visit with our local delegation, get their feedback, then sit down with the redevelopment authority, coordinate with them before we move forward on another contract. And we can vote on that Tuesday. That's just discussion. Do y'all have any questions?
When you say vote on it, their contract is coming up?
Yes,
Like,
now,
okay.
if we're gonna continue with them. Yeah, and the contract is in your stuff that Jamie sent out. Jamie, Jim, do y'all have any comments on that? Ms. Pat, any comments? Okay. All right, so now we'll move to a very happy topic of paving. Everybody wants the potholes gone. Everybody wants the streets looking good. And so do I. And so does the council.
I don't know that I have a whole lot to add. I'm not sure if I'm done, but,
You could always find something to talk about, Kevin.
Zach handed out an email earlier this week, an updated list, based on the feedback we've had. And I think still the conversation is what's the financial limit? I think I've heard that we want to use the internet sales tax, the use tax, bipartisan infrastructure modernization act money, so whatever you want to call it. I think our last conversation is that come July of next year, y'all should have high $6 to maybe even $7 million. I think Jim was going to kind of look into that more and less of where that threshold, and then the decision was is, all right, how much are we going to spend money in-house, nothing borrowed, and how's it going to be divided? Is it going to be divided off of needs? Is it going to be divided evenly by ward? Will there be roads over 5,000 vehicles per day, which are more majorly used amongst everybody in the city that may get shared by all? Those decisions have to be made before we can sit down and start drawing the line where, and I think most of you who have received your list have seen there's more need out there than there is going to be money available. So there's going to have to be decisions made of cuts, if you will, or what we call the deferred list. We'll move them over to a list that next time we start, we have a list to start from that we know the needs are there. So I'll stop there and just say if there's any questions, we can't really ride with each councilman like we want to do and make those decisions until we know where the financial line is going to be drawn.
And
I think y'all should go ahead and ride.
give us a time frame on when we need to say, okay, Ward 3 has X amount of money.
I've had 2 different paving contractors come to me and say right now would be the best time to get out some, and I say right now being this last quarter of the year, to get out a set of plans for paving, because the state's gonna put their stuff out early next year, and if they win those awards, all of a sudden the city contract's not as attractive, but they said they need the work right now. And so our goal would be, if y'all cut us loose today, it's still gonna take 3 to 4 months, because we have to ride with you, we have to measure up the streets, find all the manholes, put the plans together, so it takes a minute to do.
Well, that's why I'm been pushing y'all to go ahead and ride.
I don't disagree, we can ride.
So you can see those.
Well,
because
we don't know how much money to spend. Why
Wait,
am I riding 100 streets when I don't have enough money to
Well, I
spend
think
for 50
well, I think your citizens would be happy that you were riding their streets. You might see something that wasn't on the list, Rusty. I think you should ride them because I saw
I ride
something.
them. I know my streets.
Okay, well, don't
already.
ride yours yet, Rusty, that's fine. But I think the others should try to go ahead and start riding, so we got this information in front of us. I sent pictures that I saw on the street in Jackie's ward, or Mr. Chico's ward, that I made sure that y'all knew it was in there. It was horrible. I just happened to peel off that road, you couldn't hardly go down it.
Yeah, and we're having
So many
discussions,
spots.
you know, not just mill and overlay, we're having discussions, some roads just need a simple pothole repair, right? A good, deep, full-depth asphalt repair. Some of them need manholes. You know, Military Road's one of those that Councilman Jones and I have been talking about. It's expensive to mill and overlay Military, whereas it still has, it was paved in 2011. And it has 5 years or more life left in it, but part of the reason it rides so bad is because the manholes
Yes,
are in
terrible.
different ways, and you could go through it very cheaply and fix those manholes and better that ride. So there's little examples of other things we can do as we ride and look at things to stretch the money further to continue to, you know, move forward.
Even if you don't know, help me understand this, even if you don't know exactly how much money you're gonna spend, you will have already identified the worst streets in your ward.
And set
So you
priorities.
at least know that.
And set priorities.
And set priorities.
So once y'all give me the money, we can just draw lines. Okay, this is where it stops.
So I don't see why you have to have a solid number before you're looking at those things, but that's just me.
Well, we can try to get you a solid number Tuesday, as confer with all of you, see if we can try to get one by Tuesday.
Okay.
Get what by Tuesday?
Get a solid number by
I would
Tuesday.
hope. I'll send you my idea that I've sent to everybody to kind of get this ball rolling. so
It's
that we
been
can
rolling, but
kinda-
these are good ideas.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna work with y'all any way we can to make it happen. I think I started this saying, it's been done in different ways almost every time it comes out
He
based
even left
on.
me some parking lot money in there, thank you, Rusty.
If you keep fussing at me, we're gonna.
I'm not fussing at you, I'm just trying to give you good advice. There's a difference. I just don't understand, I mean, I've been looking at these, anyway. I think I just get more calls about them, or either I just respond more, I don't know. But I can't imagine you haven't been looking at your roads. All right,
Thank y'all
thank you,
much.
Kevin.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much. All right. Oh, and we're at the end of the list. All right.
I have a question,
Okay.
not on the list. What's the update on the audit that we looked at?
Good question.
I can tell you we sent more schedules over today. I would like to tell you that the 30% done, but.
Didn't we get an email from when they're gonna be back in the building again, though? Are they coming back next week?
I haven't,
Okay, I'll double check with Wanda and see.
but, we're continuing to do work papers for now.
Okay, and have we looked at engaging a firm for our next 2022?
We said that at the last meeting, that we felt like 2021 should be completed before we advertise, because nobody's probably going to want to bid on it until they know they can see 2021.
Right.
But we are definitely going to advertise.
Thank
And what she's asking for, to get quotes from other accounting firms to potentially do our audit.
Request for proposal.
Yeah, request for proposals.
Yeah, we have two large proposals that we're in that, the audit for 2022, and then it's now time to also put out, requests for proposals for the checking the bank accounts.
Right, thank you.
Mr. Green,
I have nothing.
you don't want to yell at me anymore? Okay. All right. We're just kidding, guys. This is fun. With that, we'll close the meeting. Thank you, everybody.